Hi there, I'm Sonal Mehrotra Kapoor and welcome to the Breakfast Club. I hope you're all sitting there with your cups of coffee. I clearly am. And we are going to discuss things that matter to you, things that will get your day started, and things that will be conversation starters between you, your friends, your family, etc. So without any further ado, let's take you through what all have we got lined up for you on the show today. 100% cashless payments at all hospitals across the country. But how to avail the benefits? We bring you a detailed explainer. As more startups go public in 2024, I'm in conversation with the CEO of Sugar Cosmetics, Vineeta Singh. But do not pitch to her in an elevator. She'll spill the beans. Is there now a worrying shift in the weather system? We talk later in the program and discuss about weather pattern shifting, and yes, it is climate change. Buckingham Palace has worryingly announced that King Charles has been diagnosed with a form of cancer and will be postponing his public duties while he receives treatment. Also coming up on the program, if you're planning that trip to Ayodhya, let's tell you how to make it foolproof. And also coming up on the program, should you really be eating after sunset? Well, I spoke with the famous gut doctor, Dr. Pal, and he's going to convince you on why this is so important. Alright, let's begin with our top story today. So, how you and I pay for medical treatments at hospitals has changed dramatically starting 24th of Jan 2024. We do not need to pay cash at hospitals at all. That's if you're insured, however. Single-handedly, this has been the most impactful, or at least said to be the most impactful medical reform we have seen in a while. Meaning that, remember those last-minute arrangements that you had to make for cash, call relatives, run to ATM before you have a surgery lined up or an emergency coming up? All those days could now be behind us since this cashless payment has come into being. Now, this also means, this is also, remember, very much in line with how the Western world deals with insurance. The government surely did this with in mind that they want to have more and more people take up insurance schemes and ensure that they are, their health benefits are taken into account. There are schemes in the government sector, there are schemes in the private sector as well. But if you have an insurance, you don't need to pay a penny. However, since this scheme has come into the fray, there has been a lot of confusion about a particular 48-hour window. How do you inform the hospital? How do you ensure that if there is an emergency, how do they know that this is going to be cashless? So we thought we'll sort of bring you an explainer and a reality check of sorts on what to do in case you are in this situation. All right. And with me in this conversation is Yash today. Good morning, Yash. How are you doing?
A very good morning, Sonal. I'm doing good. How are you?
Good, good. I've had my coffee, so I'm good to go and chat up with everybody who's watching us right now. But, firstly, I want to start. This is set to be a game changer, right? So in line with how things are managed abroad as well, how the Western world, the more developed part of the world, also sort of looks at insurance. The key here again then is to remember that 48-hour window. Can you firstly tell us why it is so critical? And I think the question that everybody really wants to ask right now is, what happens in case of an emergency? Say there has been an emergency at home. I don't have time to call up my agent at that time. So what does one do?
So absolutely. This is actually a very valid question when it comes to the 48-hour window. So there are two situations. In case if it's a treatment which is actually suggested by a doctor, or it's a planned treatment or a planned surgery, then what you have to do is you just need to call up your agent, and that agent and the company should be informed within 48 hours or at least 48 hours before your treatment begins. And in case, like you rightly mentioned, if there's some sort of an emergency which comes up, then what you have to do is you don't need to to worry. You just go to the hospital, you get your treatment, and once you are admitted, then within 48 hours, you need to call up your insurance company and tell them that this thing has happened, and I'm in the hospital, and you have to take care of my bills. And in fact, that is how it's done. So you don't need to worry that you have to actually, in cases of emergency, you don't need to actually panic. You have a 48-hour window once you're admitted to the hospital to inform your insurance company.
So generally also if there's an emergency in a hospital, you are just rolled in, they ask for paperwork a little later, at least that's the norm. We are hoping that's what most of the hospitals are doing. But I have to say this, that TPA formalities at hospitals are the most painful. Absolutely. You are done with anyways, a surgery or a medical procedure. Being in hospitals is anyway such a painful process, and then you sit for hours and hours clearing out your TPA, even when it is cashless. So how does that change this time around? Or again, we'll have to sit down, we'll have to wait. Does that waiting period end now, that really troubling waiting period?
So absolutely, it actually ends now. The reason why I say that, earlier what used to happen was, if your insurance company has around, I'm just giving an example, if they have around 3,000 to 4,000 hospital in their panel, so there only you can avail that cashless service. Now what the GIC or the General Insurance Council has done, irrespective of insurance company having a network with that particular hospital or not, you will get that particular service. You don't need to actually, because that is now a task between the hospital and the insurance company. You just need to inform your insurance company 48 hours prior in case if it's a planned surgery or a planned treatment, and 48 hours within admission time if it's an emergency. So now you don't have to actually go through that entire TPA process. Your agent needs to know, and in case if you have bought it via via internet or via third-party app, you just need to put across an email. That's it, nothing else.
So basically you're saying keep your insurance agent's number handy.
It should be on your speed dial.
It should be on your speed dial, and that should be your first port of call, whatever happens. Absolutely. Right? And even if you are picking up, say, insurance online, etc., ensure that you're sending them an email. That's the only way this will go.
They should know it in any case and anyway.
How are hospitals taking this? I'm sure the work for them is also now increased. A lot of back-end work will happen. Has that already happened across hospitals? What's the feedback that you're picking up?
So, first look at some numbers. So, in India, as of this moment, we have around 70,000 hospitals which are registered with different state authorities and central authorities. As of now, what we are understanding, this very notification came into effect on 24th of January. So, what happens now is around 36,000 hospitals are already on board. And the rest, the organization, the different insurance company and the GIC says that they are in actually talks with other hospital to get on board. Yes, it's a tedious task for the hospital, but if you look at from a business perspective also, it is actually very good for the insurance company and both for the hospitals, because now if a person is getting a treatment at a hospital, they don't need to actually think about, oh, what will I do in case I land up there. In fact, if my bill is beyond my pocket, so they don't need to worry about that. So basically the insurance company will get more business and the hospitals will, on the other hand, will get a settlement on time.
Right. So we hope that this is actually happening. In fact, let's do a quick check. Let's ask all our viewers to sort of send us questions. Our Twitter handles, etc., are all scrolling on your screen as well. So if you go to the hospital and you feel that something is not in sync with what has been designed by the government, etc., please do write into us, and we'll sort of look into it and see how and sort of give feedback to hospitals and governments as well. Because this is such an important sort of initiative. We really hope this will change the lives of so many more. So thanks, Yash, for joining us and bringing us all these details.
Most welcome, Sonal.
All right, on our next guest on the program today, we have somebody very interesting. She's somebody who's possibly given me sort of woman goals, if I can really call it that, because just so many hats she wears. She's not just a household name now because of Shark Tank, but she's also a very active marathon runner. She is a mom of two. She is a CEO, so she's one of the most inspiring people that you can find around. So joining me today, oh my God, and we are twinning. Good morning, Vineeta, and welcome to TVC. How are you doing today?
Thank you so much, Sonal, and congratulations for the new format, the new show. Very excited to appear here in one of the first few episodes, and I hope we can make it count.
Yes, we must make it count, and I'm sure that's going to be the case. But let me sort of dive in a little bit and tell people, introduce people to a bit of your story as well. Yours is a story of a 23-year-old who decided not to take up a job where the package was only 1 CR, right? It wasn't much. You decided not to do that, and you said that I will go and be my own boss. How does a 23-year-old think like that? I want to understand what was going on in your brain at that point, and how did you have such massive self-belief?
Well, very honestly, Sonal, I don't think I understood how hard it's going to be. So if you ask me honestly, if I had known that it's a very honestly, Sonal, I don't think I understood how hard it's going to be. So if you ask me honestly, if I had known that it's a journey that's going to take like 20 years and it's going to be full of like a lot of failures, a lot of rejections, maybe I wouldn't have had the courage to do it. But you know, when you're 23, the good thing that happens is that there's a lot of bravado, and you have a lot of self-belief. And I just assume that it's going to be much easier to build your own business. But in hindsight, when I look back, I think no career is easy, whether you start your own business or you want to be world class in anything that you do. It does take 15, 20 years. It takes a lot of risks. It takes a lot of consistency and showing up every single day, even in the face of rejection, failure, and you know, sometimes a lot of stress around what the hell am I doing with my life. So I think I went through all of those journeys, but luckily most entrepreneurs have this bias for action where without really thinking about what the risks in this were, I jumped into it. And the first 7 years were really, really hard because it was one failure after another. And, you know, it's something that they don't teach you at business school, like really how to run a business, because they can't. Every day is like a new story. But I think so, you know, I don't give myself a lot of credit for having the courage to start up back then because it wasn't thought through. But I do give myself credit for hanging in there for 17 years through those failures and showing up every single day for my consumers, even when there was no money left in the bank account and, you know, I didn't know how I would pay the next month's salaries. But even on those days, I showed up. And I think that's what really matters, just showing up every day, decade after decade. And when you're in your 20s, you think 20 years is a long time. But actually, most careers get built, if you want to do something world class, over a 20-year period.
Wow.
And it's important to have that patience. And not just as an entrepreneur, but as anybody who's trying to be really good at something, it's important to stay consistent, be patient.
So yours is clearly a story of perseverance and grit, and that is now becoming a theme on TBC. We had Rohan Bopanna yesterday, and he also said it took him 20 years to become world #1, but he kept at it. He fought through age, he fought through a lot of challenges to ensure that he get there. But you know, this is what I hear a lot of entrepreneurs talk about. They say that it is about showing up day after day. But can you share some tools perhaps on how exactly do you do it? Like, what's your pick me up? If I'm somebody who's starting up and I'm feeling really down and out, I feel this is it, I've hit rock bottom. Can you share with us what do you do at that moment?
Yeah. I think, you know, when you're in your 20s, it's all about like milestones, right? You're really thinking about, oh, I'm going to get like my valuation's going to be this much. I'm going to get to 100 crore. I'm going to get to a bigger office. I'm going to get a big car. I'm going to, you know, have a house. It's all about, you know, you're thinking about milestones. But you realize eventually that it's actually, no matter how cliched it sounds, but it's really the journey that matters a lot more. And I think the only thing that as an entrepreneur you have to do, I don't think there is any other option, is to enjoy the journey and to be excited about the journey. And I really, you know, reminded myself every day that this suffering, this pain, this rejection, this failure is all part of the plan. You know, that's how it's meant to be. And I really fell in love with our consumers, with the products that I was creating, with the brand that I was building, with the India story, with the people I was working with. We have the pleasure of having 75% women who work at Sugar. And I was excited about
Beautiful.
that. And I didn't worry myself beyond a point about, the getting to the next milestone and, just getting to the next big zero in your top line, bottom line. And I just, those are important and you have to obviously speak about them at every board meeting. But unless you really
Very
truly
important,
enjoy the
yeah.
process and
Yeah.
you really remind yourself that, it's at the end of the day, nobody gets happy because of X number of digits in their bank account, but they really get happy about, what they're building, what they're doing, and who they're doing it with. I could be grateful. And I was able to tell myself that, yeah, I mean, I might be in the gutter right now, but I'm still looking at the stars. I have hope, I have optimism, I have a great team to work with. And just those little bits of gratitude about how far I had come, and just enjoying the moments got me through those tough years. And
Celebrating small wins, I think that's really what a lot of people also identify with. I'm also a huge believer in celebrating these little things. That's what keeps you going. But, and kudos to you, by the way, for having over 70% workforce as women. So that's a good win as well. But your journey is also one where you've sort of flipped to the other side. Let's talk about Shark Tank now. You've become a household name because of that. You're helping other women entrepreneurs as well. But I've always been curious to know, as much as joy, I'm sure, as much as fame, as much as reach that you're getting with this show, what is the one thing that you guys don't enjoy?
yeah, so firstly, I do feel very grateful, since you spoke about women. If you see globally, less than 2.5% of the global capital goes to women-led businesses. It's a shame.
Yeah.
Right? And on Shark Tank, more than 50% of the capital I invest goes to women founders. And I'm really proud of that because, at the end of the day, you to change the narrative, you have to start with yourself. So it is a huge privilege. And, even bigger than that, when I was growing up, there was a dearth of women role models. And I really believed for a few years in my life that to be a successful entrepreneur, I had to be a man because, there weren't any women who were really doing this well. And now when I meet like 8-year-old girls at airports and malls, they come and tell me that they have the dream of becoming entrepreneurs. They have the ambition of creating the largest company in the world, and their moms are in agreement. And it's a very different world as far as, young girls and their ambition is concerned. And you're the mom of a 6-month-old little girl.
Yes.
So I'm sure, for you also to think that your daughter is going to grow up in a time where she thinks anything is possible. That's amazing, right? So for me to be a part of that transition, it's very exciting. The challenge that happens is that, in India, there is just so many people and there are a lack of resources. So which is when the hustle starts. When the hustle starts, it means that you could be in a washroom at the airport and somebody can ask you for funding.
What?
Right? And which you can be, all the time, like, I just, people assume that I'm just carrying like a ton of money with me, doling it out, which is not possible because at the end of the day, I have to prioritize allocation of resources, including time and money. And I feel that, the part that I don't like is having to say no so often to, requests, whether it's for capital or for mentorship. I really wish I could do more. But if I don't prioritize enough, then I wouldn't be doing justice to my own, business, family, and my investee companies, and which is why I have to say no a lot. So I think that's the part that I would say I don't enjoy as much.
But wait, hold on. You're saying people have actually done that? They've knocked your washroom door, caught you up on elevators and said, "Madam, I have this pitch, please hear me out"?
No, when I bump into at public washrooms in a mall or at an airport, so many times, yeah. I mean, I've had people in elevators giving pitches. I've had people like in the middle of a run. I'm like, running in the morning, and I've had people come and give me a pitch. And I always, that's why whenever somebody comes, I first start with telling them that, I'm not doing too many deals outside of Shark Tank because so that they don't, spend a lot of time and energy giving a big pitch. But yeah, it happens all the time.
Yeah, but I keep thinking about it. This entire startup culture, it's not just a trend, it's a mindset that India is perhaps in, right now. The entire country, it's so nice to see girls and boys, young girls and boys saying it's not just doctors, engineers anymore, it's not just offbeat careers. We want to be our own boss. And that is what a lot of you and role models like you are really doing. So that's really, really lovely to see. But you talked about hustle culture. Now, this is something that also bothers me sometimes. We hear so much about the downside of the hustle culture. We are in this age when, thankfully, mental illness is being talked about so openly. And a lot of it perpetrating also on how just kids who are starting out in big companies or even in startups, etc., feel sometimes. Not to name someone and not to be generic, but we hear a lot of these stories, a lot of breakdowns happen, a lot of no balancing act really at home. What's your take on it and what's our way out of it?
Yeah. So, firstly, I am a product of the millennial generation, and I did grow up, knowing that you can't control the outcome, but you can control the input, which is the kind of effort you put in, and hard work matters. So, I have always been a big believer of working hard and, working hard for your dreams. But many times, and which is hustle at the end of the day, and which is why hustle I always have used internally also as a very positive term, because it has empowered me for becoming who I am. And like I said, like the entrepreneur who, like ask somebody in a washroom, for funding, you can call it hustle. You can call it not understanding the boundary, and you can, there can be a positive connotation or a negative connotation for it. But I feel that, in a lot of cases, when it's taken to extreme, it leads to an organization where there is a lack of respect for people. There is a lot of focus on things like face time, where, politics start coming in. It matters how many, how your perception of the effort that you're putting in rather than the actual effort. And I think that's where hustle can go from being a positive term to a negative term. So I feel that, rather than calling hustle, which I think is an empowering term, because at the end of the day, to do anything great, you have to hustle, you have to take risk, you have to take a chance, you have to pitch to somebody in a washroom somewhere. And I like to focus on the positives of hustle, which is working hard and taking risks. And but it has to be within, I think, with respect for other people, which means that when it goes towards becoming toxic in terms of an environment where people are not able to, take care of their health or their families for the sake of that hustle, then it's crossing the line. And I feel that as an organization, it's important to get the balance right.
Yeah.
And as an organization which has 75% women, I think a lot about getting that balance right, not just for myself, but for everybody who works here. And which is why it is, I ensure that there is a culture of output more than just input. But it's very rare to get output without the input, if you understand what I mean.
Yeah, it's a balancing act, but very well said answer, very mature as well. We really hope other startups are also listening to this as we go around in the program. But you talked about balancing act, and I really want to know this. How are you managing this? You are a mom of two. You are a marathon runner, you are a CEO, you're now a judge on Shark Tank, you're mentoring other people. I mean, I'm going crazy with just one kid at home and this job. How are you doing this? How many PTAs have you missed, and where are you on the guilt trip journey?
Luckily, have just missed one PTA so far, which my husband managed to show up for. So between both of us, we're there. I think I do think that a lot of times women get more trapped in the whole guilt management rather than the time management zone. And I think I have figured over a period of time that, the only way to deal with guilt is to, is to remind yourself that, you're doing the best that you can and not seek perfection. And I feel that a lot of what I do is possible because I have a lot of help, which means I don't do everything myself.
Yeah.
And I'm able to delegate both at home and at work because I'm not seeking perfection all the time. And I'm just, I'm trying to just enjoy the moment and the journey. And I feel that really being a mother makes me a better founder, and being a founder makes me a better mother. And which is why I'm very proud of both my roles, which is why I don't let that, which is how I don't let that guilt creep into my my mental mindset every day, because I think guilt is absolutely the one emotion that derails our journey of enjoying this phase. And I think over a period of time, with just getting enough help, managing my energy rather than my time, and not seeking perfection, I'm able to get by. But it's not easy. I don't claim to make it sound like it's easy. It's been hard. And I'm always learning, and I'm always, talking to other founders and, learning from their best practices. But I think one of the places where I've been super lucky is that like I mentioned earlier, I have a husband who puts in half the work at home. And I think that for me is a conversation which every woman needs to have, because, the data says that in India, women are putting in 6 times more hours of unpaid domestic chores compared to men. And there is no way we can have equality at work if that ratio at home is 1:6.
Well
So
said.
I'm very lucky. Without having tough conversations, I have 50% support from my husband. But for all the women out there, I think whatever tough conversations it takes, it's important to make sure there is no perfect equation, but it's important to make sure that both the partners are putting in enough effort at home in raising children as well as taking care of domestic chores, because it's, not a job that can be done. I mean, it's much harder for women when they have to do it by themselves.
Right. Such an inspiring conversation. I'm loving this, Vineeta. But I want to shift gears a little bit right now, and I want you to put on your CEO hat and tell me something, totally business related now. We're looking at 2024 very differently. It's a year when a lot of startups are hitting IPO. Everyone is looking at that with a bit of a caution. We know what happened with Paytm. We know what happened with the 2021 entire cycle. So how are you reading this trend? How are you looking at companies, startups like Farmeasy, Swiggy, Oyo, Ola Electric, all of them now in the fray to hit IPOs? What's the thing to watch out for here?
So in India, if you look at 2021, it was a year when there was almost more than 40 billion of private capital that was invested in startups. That number in 23 was down to 11 billion. So it's been much harder as far as private markets are concerned. Whereas if you look at public markets, I mean, the Sensex is, not showing any signs of going down. It's been phenomenal growth over the last 12 months, at about 73,000 now, if I'm not mistaken. And which also means that in public markets, companies are getting valued more than in private markets. And this is happening after a long time. In 2021, it was absolutely the other way. Whereas in 2024, there is suddenly public versus private market. The difference in the valuations is a lot for all types of businesses. So I think it's good for companies to go public because they're getting more value over there, and there is a lot more liquidity in public markets at the moment. But yes, the fundamentals have become very important today. And I think that's very good because it's, companies are being weighed on the basis of their bottom line. So all of the companies that you mentioned, it's important for them to either show profits or a road to profitability. Things which weren't spoken about earlier as far as startups were concerned, like working capital, cash flow, ROCE, which is return on the capital expenditure, all of that, those are becoming terms which are super critical even in the case of startups now. And the third is corporate governance. So, even startups are not getting the benefit of doubt, saying that you're a smaller company, so you can avoid some of these corporate governance practices that make investors feel confident about the investment. SEBI is making sure that all of these companies that are filing a DRHP have to go through all the corporate governance guidelines that SEBI has. So I think there's a lot more pressure on boards and on these companies to do the right thing in terms of having a solid bottom
You're right.
line, having
Yeah.
solid fundamentals, and having corporate governance in place.
Yeah. I also think profitability along with predictability, along with the steady flow is what SEBI is also focusing on, and what a lot of startups now hitting IPO this year should be focusing on as well. And that's clearly what the street is sort of watching out for. But you said earlier that you don't see this funding winter going anywhere in 2024. You've said in earlier interviews that it's going to be much harder to raise money this year.
Yeah, private markets are still quite tough. And if anybody's, there are a lot of companies that are still not ready to list. And for them, the only option is to either figure out a way to generate cash flow from business or, raise in private markets at whatever valuation they get. So private market, like I said, we are sitting at 1/4 the kind of capital that was annually being deployed 3 years back. And this is not going to change anytime soon. So it is very important for companies to keep basics in mind first. Whatever valuation you're getting, as much as you can raise, because it's not that you can be hopeful that anything will change in the next 12 months. Secondly, entrepreneurs are always optimistic, but sometimes that optimism can borderline become delusional, where you start hoping that you're sitting on a 6 months runway and that some capital will come in from somewhere and save you, because that's not happening. And I'm seeing companies go down to the wire, which is very dangerous, because then you are talking about jobs being put at risk. You're talking about your reputation being put at risk. And no amount of optimism is worth putting jobs and reputation at risk. So I think my other message is that unless you have a signed agreement in hand, make sure that you have a 12 to 18 months runway. Just be absolutely paranoid in terms of cash flow, and just don't end up in a situation where you have to let down vendors and employees, because at the end of the day, that is what brings down the entire startup ecosystem. With so much difficulty, moms and dads are letting their kids join startups because they feel that, it's not the scary, super risky career anymore. But we can go back 5 years in time to that era where people would be like, whatever you do, don't join a startup. If, there are a lot of companies that take these risks and have to let people go. So I think about it, very, very cautiously when there is somebody else's job at stake, which is why make sure you have 12 to 18 months runway at least, so that you can go over this funding winter. Because to believe that this funding winter, as far as private markets are concerned, will get over anytime soon is
not happening.
Purely delusional, because I'm not seeing any signs of that happening.
This is a very interesting conversation. I could just go on and on. I want to pick your brains about camaraderie with other women entrepreneurs and so on, but that's perhaps a story for another day. We have to conclude now, but every time a guest comes on Breakfast Club, we ask them about their morning mantra. What is it that they're doing the first thing in the morning? Is it coffee? Is it chai? Is it yoga? Is it meditation? Is it this really nice song that you wake up to? How does Vineeta wake up to be the boss lady that she is?
For me, after my black coffee in the morning, the go-to thing is always a workout, because I do feel that just, taking that like 1 hour out for myself in the morning is the greatest gift that I can give to my family and to my workplace, because it just makes me a much better mother and a much better CEO. And so for me, my morning mantra is making time for myself first thing in the morning before I make time for the rest of the world.
Yeah, center yourself before you can go and fix everything else around you. Thanks, Vineeta, so much. This was really, really lovely. This is just the kind of conversation we want to have every morning so that our days are also made. And hopefully, we'll do more of these in the days to come. Thanks so much for joining us on TVC. All right, on that note, we have to hit a break. Coming up on the other side, we will take you through a detailed itinerary. Now, post the Ram Mandir inauguration, everybody wants to go to Ayodhya, but everybody is wondering, it is so cold, where will we stay, what to do? So we pulled out an itinerary for you, so you didn't have to. Catch us on the other side for more.
2 years ago.
I'd achieved before. Obviously, I wanted to get to that next step. The minute it reached match point, there are nerves, and then Matt hit that great serve, and I had this easy smash to put away, and I was telling myself, don't miss it, don't miss it. But thankfully we got through that.
Right. So, this has been a very interesting year for tennis. We see the big three make way for younger names, perhaps, if I can call it. The conversation about age of the athlete somehow has taken center stage. And you are, of course, 43. Your partner, Matthew, is also in his late 30s. I wonder, is age a conversation among you guys? Do you guys often talk about it, on how to beat it, or how does it go between the two of you?
I don't think so. I don't think we have once, really discussed that. The conversation is, are you fit, ready to go to the match? I don't think, age has anything to do with it. And, success can come at any age. I don't think it, anyone has ever tells you at this age, if you can't get it, there's no more success going to happen. So that is where I, truly believe the perseverance of, constantly being out there, doing it week in, week out, trying and figuring out what was best for me to help the partnership. I mean, back in 2022, when I decided to play with Matthew Ebden, I told my coach, here's a great opportunity to play with a Grand Slam champion. I said, and 2022, I was not really traveling with a physio, and I said, I need to hire a physio. So luckily, I found a great physio from Belgium. Her name is Rebecca, and when she came on the circuit for the first time, I said, see, I wanted something very specific. I have no cartilages on my knees. It's fully worn out. And what I want to do is really focus on strengthening. Even the days I practice, if I'm not feeling great, that's totally fine. But the days I play matches is where I want to feel 100%. So she understood that. And then she said, okay, we need to start a lot of mobility, a lot of stretching. I have this love-hate relationship with ice baths. Okay. I think, and today I actually love it. It's become no choice.
Yeah. But let me sort of break it down. Before, you mentioned ice baths, right? But I hear you have a lot of yoga also happening off late. So share with our viewers your fitness regime. This age-beating fitness regime that Rohan Bopanna has. What does it entail?
So I think in 2019, when I realized that my cartilages were fully worn out, I did these platelet-rich plasma PRP injections in end of the year. And my doctor told me here in Bangalore, he said, these injections, definitely will work as long as you start strengthening them. It's not like you just put the injection and you go and you're ready to fly. Yeah. So somewhere the pandemic was a blessing in disguise, because that's when I discovered Iyengar yoga.
Okay.
And I found a couple in Bangalore who were teaching Iyengar yoga, place called Practice Room. So, and I called them and I told them, this is my condition. And they said, okay, this is going to be a challenge, but they were ready to, figure out, how to strengthen my legs, because my legs had gotten really weak. Hence, my knees, my bone to bone were rubbing against each other, hence the pain. So once they started doing that, and, I was doing 90-minute session 4 times a week.
Wow.
And initially I thought yoga, it's too slow for me. It's not cutting it. I mean, but I'm glad that perseverance is such a big asset in my journey. It has been, I've always trying to find ways, and I actually fell in love with it. I realized, how much of a difference it was making. And apart from just strengthening my legs, then I started aligning my back, my shoulders. And I feel also my mind became a little calmer some way or the other, indirectly just focusing on those muscles. My mental strength also started getting stronger. And I started looking at also my matches very differently in terms of, if I would say, is that I used to sometimes say that, oh, you know what, I tell my coach, I wish my partner he didn't miss that volley, I missed that forehand. So now I started telling myself, maybe my serve was not good enough, so hence he missed that volley,
Wow.
A new perspective. And that yoga kind of helped me. I do 10-minute meditations before the day starts. Then I get my beautiful coffee to go with. And also what helps is before matches I take some power naps. That kind of really helps, refresh the mind, and it's ready to go, that at that moment. Those like a 10-15 minute power naps, not longer. And after, the matches, the biggest thing is those ice baths. Those ice baths have been amazing for recovery.
Welcome back. You're watching TBC, and let's move on to the next story. Now, this is a story that is part 2. Remember, yesterday we showed you the visuals of that lovely snowfall in Kashmir, and a lot of you wrote back to us saying, but is the weather pattern shifting? What exactly is happening? So we thought, let's do a deep dive into that. It finally snowed there, we showed you that about already, but there is a worrying dry spell that was there in all of North India, which received the first season snowfall only on the 28th of January. Remember November, December, when we were growing up, that used to be winter holidays, but none of that. So what exactly is happening with this shifting weather pattern? Is there a climate change angle? Or can we say that winter will peak in January only? I'm sure you are sort of wondering all these questions as well. So we thought let's go to Shrishti, who will decode all of this for us. So good morning, Shrishti. Welcome to TBC. I'm seeing lovely visuals behind you. A lot of snow finally and thankfully, but this has come after a very worrying delay. And the question in everybody's mind is that, is this how it will be now? Are we going to see January as the new peak time of winter?
Right, Sonal. So this is the question that everybody is really wondering about, because if you remember, December was entirely dry. It was entirely dry in January as well. We did not receive any significant spell of rain or snow until 28th of January, when two back-to-back western disturbances impacted the western Himalayas, and we received the first intense spell of snowfall for Jammu and Kashmir, Himachal Pradesh as well as Uttarakhand. And a lot of areas on the northwestern plains received a good amount of rainfall and hailstorm. Now, it is definitely, the shift is happening, because if you remember, for the last few years, the December is becoming a little unusually warmer. The minimum temperatures tend to be a little over the normal over the long period average, and December is the time when we see actually the cold winter happening. This is what we saw this year as well. And
in fact, Shrishti, let me pause you there, and I want our viewers to sort of shift our focus to what we are showing them on their screen right now. This is the stark difference between what was happening in the northern belt in December versus Feb. Now, the pictures that you see on your screen of December, this would be like March earlier on, right? So there is a massive shift. Is this only an India phenomena? I first want to understand, or are we seeing this globally and thus a clear sort of fallout of climate change?
True, Sonal. So what's happening is that we are living in a constantly warming world. If you remember, 2023 was the warmest year on record for the entire world. For India, it was the second warmest year after 2016. So the overall temperatures, the annual temperatures were above normal, above the long period average by 0.6 degrees Celsius. And this warming, the most, we feel this impact mostly during the winter period, when we feel that the temperature should go below normal, we should feel colder days and cooler nights. But this is not what's happening, and the scientists that I spoke to do connect it with climate change, and it is definitely changing the way the weather patterns are behaving. If you remember, during the monsoons as well, we see a higher amount of rainfall falling on fewer number of days rather than being spread geographically uniformly over the 4-month season. And winter is another season where we are experiencing this, because we feel that yes, December is unusually warm, like you're rightly pointing out. During our school days, it wasn't the case.
Right, and the shift is worrying indeed. Now, this is a story we'll keep a tap on as we move forward. But thanks so much, Shrishti, for joining us with all those updates, shifting focus to what's happening in Uttar Pradesh. Now, after the Ram Mandir inauguration, everybody, I'm sure, is planning trips. Everybody wants to go and understand, how do we get darshan? What time should we go? Is there a direct flight? Where do we stay? What is allowed inside? What is not? How long is the walk? So we thought, let's answer all those questions. Take a look at this report.
Nearly 2.5 lakh people are visiting the temple daily, which is a record number of devotees at any religious site in India or in the world. So if you are planning to take a trip to the Ram temple in Ayodhya, here are the 5 things you should keep in mind. Number 1. How to get there and book a hotel. The easiest way of getting to Ayodhya is on a direct flight. Indigo, Air India and SpiceJet are running daily flights to Ayodhya from various metros like Mumbai, Bangalore, Ahmedabad, Kolkata, Chennai, Jaipur, Patna and even Darbhanga. Train connectivity to Ayodhya is also very good, including a Delhi, Ayodhya, Vande Bharat and an Amrit Bharat train. If you choose to fly to Lucknow, Ayodhya is about 2.5-hour road journey on the highway. But I would suggest book a hotel in advance, as rooms are in shortage. One can also opt for dharamshalas or download the Holy Ayodhya app for booking homestays in Ayodhya. Number 2. Plan a 2-day trip. It is best to stay a night in Ayodhya given the rush at the temple, which makes a day trip, even by flight, difficult. In an at least 2-day trip, you will have enough time to visit the new temple, see the Ram Ki Pauri in the evening where the annual Dipotsav takes place, and the famous Hanuman Gadi temple. Don't miss out on the laddus available near the Hanuman Gadi temple. Number 3. Try the morning hours for darshan. Well, the Ram temple is now opening at 6:30 am. It is open till noon. It is closed for 2 hours between noon and 2 pm, and then it reopens at 2 pm and is open till 10 pm. An early morning visit to the temple may see less rush. Remember, you can't carry any footwear, mobiles, electronic items or bags inside the temple complex. You can only carry your small wallet. Deposit all these items in the Tirth Kendra, Suvita Kendra before entering the queue at the main gate of the temple. Also, you can't take any prasad inside or even flowers for offering to the deity. You can get the prasad inside the temple premises from the trust. Number 4. Expect a long walk. With a huge rush of pilgrims, you may find police checkposts at least 3 to 4 kilometers ahead of the temple entry on the Dharampath. This leads to the Lata Mangeshkar Chowk and vehicles could be stopped here. So be prepared to walk a long distance, and I would suggest wear a good pair of shoes. The Uttar Pradesh government is running some electric buses and battery carts for pilgrims on the Dharampath as well as the Rampath that leads to the temple. I would suggest take these electric buses to reach the temple complex. Number 5. Expect a long queue. Well, with over 2.5 lakh people daily at the Ram temple, one can expect a long queue and prolonged waiting time of at least an hour or 2. But there are chairs and matting now on the Ram Janambhoomi Path that leads to the main temple, along with drinking water facilities. Holding areas have also been made for sending pilgrims ahead in a staggered manner. Once before the deity in the Garbhagriha, you may be able to get darshan only for about 4 to 5 seconds given the rush. Magistrates are posted at various points, so pilgrims can reach out for help if needed. The rush at the Ayodhya temple is not expected to subside anytime soon and is only expected to increase in the lead up to the Ram Navami festival in April, and the summer season is also coming up. I hope these 5 tips help everyone have a divine darshan of Ram Lalla at the grand temple in Ayodhya.
Alright, so on TBC, we will also be bringing you, like we promised, lots of health hacks. How to stay fit, how to eat right, how to think right. So in that series, we spoke with one of the funniest and the most informative people out there. I'm talking about the gut doctor, as he's famously known on YouTube, on Instagram. He's quite famous, really. So we flew him down from US, and we sat down with him to understand why is Dr. Pal insisting that people should eat before sunset, meaning wrap up everything that you're doing and do not have a morsel of food after sunset. It's going to be so difficult, right? Especially for people like you and me. Listen to his answer. Doc, one thing that everybody knows you by is that you keep propagating, and this is your life mission, so to say, to ensure that people do not eat after sunset. My first and foremost question is this: how? This is great. All research show that there has to be a sort of intermittent fasting of sorts, a natural fasting cycle that one must adopt.
Right.
But I have to say, people like us who work long hours and only get those sort of few hours, few treasure moments with family to sit down on dinner and have, how can you tell us not to have dinner? So what I'm essentially asking you is, what is the alternative then for people who cannot do fasting in the evening?
So it's a common problem. It's a practical issue. The reason that I keep on saying that don't eat after 7 p.m. is that at least if I say that rigidly, they might not eat anything after 10 p.m. So that's one of the bright hope that I have. The reason that I'm saying this repeatedly is I think people should understand why I'm saying this. Because there's a hormone called insulin. Everybody knows it. Insulin is one of the main hormone that digests all your glucose, fat and everything. It's a very important metabolic hormone. If you have excess glucose, if insulin doesn't digest, then it gets converted into fat. That is the concept. So insulin, similar to how we go to sleep at night and then wake up in the morning, insulin also goes to sleep at night and wakes up in the morning. And insulin's sleeping tip is sunset. So that's why when you see people go outside in the morning to get sunlight, they get exposed with all the hormones activation right away. So that's why when you start from sunrise, insulin is peaker in the afternoon and then dies down at sunset.
So you have to plan your meals accordingly is what you're saying.
Correct.
Okay.
So let's say in our busy era, what is happening is we are eating at 10 p.m. Correct. So what is happening? Insulin is sleeping for 3 hours already. So basically you're waking the insulin up and then says that, okay, please digest this biryani for me.
What cycle is it called?
It's called circadian rhythm.
Circadian rhythm, right.
This is how we were evolved. Our ancestors did this. So we are just not doing it because of this modern lifestyle that we are in. So when ancestors were hunting, they started hunting only after sunrise because there was no light.
Yeah.
And when they have to have dinner, they need to have dinner before sunset.
Right. So, but like I said, the challenge here is that it's not feasible for a lot of us. Like
Correct.
it interferes with family time. In fact, a lot of us, and I'm sure our viewers also feel it, they leave early in the morning in a rush. Breakfast is really rushed. You want to send kids to school. You have to get dressed. You have a big meeting. You have a presentation. You have a podcast in your ear. You're running with your cab or fighting with your driver or something. There's a kiosk, right? So breakfast is always a rushed meal. Lunch is mostly in office, it's thanda, garam, you're not really enjoying it. When it comes to dinner, the practical point is that's the only time when you have hot food served in front of you, you sit down with your family and you get to unpack your day. So what does one do if one cannot skip dinner? Is skipping breakfast then an alternative just to sort of ensure that there is some fasting there?
Yes, absolutely, because that's why they say that no one plan is an umbrella plan. It has to be individualized. For example, Sonal has a young baby. You are very active at night, and then you are having a late morning. It's okay to have dinner late at night.
Now I can't afford to have late mornings. I'm here every day doing a show early in the morning, so no late mornings for me. And the nights continue to be the way they are. Yeah.
So let's say that your family demands dinner time around 10 p.m. What is the first step is you need to sit with your family and then say whether we can decrease 30 minutes to start with.
Okay.
So from 10 p.m. can we do 9:30? And then after 2 weeks can you do 9 p.m.? The reason I'm saying that is you will start noticing changes in your body, you will sleep well, your energy level will be sky high, and you will be longing to your dinner time to be early by yourself. So all I'm saying is if you start doing this small little change, you will start to love your body because your body will love you back.
All right. So the question we asked Dr. Pal over there was, how does one do sort of intermittent fasting in a way? Or what he says is to sort of get your gut back in shape, get your body back in shape and follow the cycle. If you're like me and you can't skip having dinner early before sunset, then try and have it early. And if that's also not possible, see if you can delay your breakfast the next day. It's important to have that 12-hour window of fasting at least. Okay, so that's some good advice. And in fact, Dr. Pal that you saw over there, he also lost a lot of weight only following intermittent fasting. But please, again, every time we bring you a health hack, don't just follow it blindly. Always talk to your doctor, talk to people around you, research and see what's working for you. These are generally options out there that we put out for everyone. Just wanted to put a bit of a caution out there. With that, it's a wrap on today's TBC. We had a lovely time presenting it to you. If you enjoyed it as well, please do send us your feedback. You can write into me, you can write into CNN News 18. And yes, we read all your feedback. It's extremely critical and important to us. And if there are topics that you want us to pick up on the program, we'll very happily do so as well. So on that note, bye-bye for now. See you tomorrow, 8 o'clock. Bye-bye. All right, for the very next story, we are joined by a very special guest. It's clearly his year. It's clearly the year of everybody who's perhaps in their 40s as well. This is a story that has inspired one and all, young and old, if we can really call it that. But without any further ado, let me just bring on our very first guest on TBC and welcome on the program Rohan Bopanna. Hi there, good morning Rohan and big congratulations. How are you doing today?
First of all, good morning Sonal, and thank you very much. Lovely chatting to you. Very nice to be on this show as your first episode. Congratulations to everyone part of this team. I think it's going to be brilliant, and I've heard that it's not just one of these other channels where you talk about news. It's going to be more fun things, you're chatting with. So really happy to be as your first guest. And, since it's, part of the morning, it is that coffee which makes the difference. That is what, for me, I wake up to coffee. A lot of people say, I wake up after having the coffee, but I wake up to have the coffee. That is my first secret of real success.
Well, that's great. To know that insight, Rohan. Also, there was a time when people said you should age like wine. Now they say you should age like Rohan Bopanna. I'm sure that's a great moment for you as well. But I want to take you back for a minute to that winning moment, to that career-defining winning point. Take us back to what was going on in your head at that time. We've seen those pictures where you just went flat on the court like that. What was running?
No, I think it was amazing, proud feeling, and most importantly, there was, you end up carrying this feel like you're carrying a burden of, whatever there is. everything just flew away rather, I would say, flew away. And that's why I ended up falling right, on that court. I mean, it was such a amazing, fitting feeling I felt after so many years of trying to get there. You're constantly trying to, cross the hurdle, or as an athlete, it was a personal goal to get better from, what you have done. I mean, the finals was something I'd achieved before. Obviously, I wanted to get to that next step. The minute it reached match point, there are nerves, and then Matt hit that great serve, and I had this easy smash to put away, and I was telling myself, don't miss it. But thankfully we got through that.
Right. So, this has been a very interesting year for tennis. We see the big three make way for younger names, perhaps, if I can call it. The conversation about age of the athlete somehow has taken center stage. And you are, of course, 43. Your partner, Matthew, is also in his late 30s. I wonder, is age a conversation among you guys? Do you guys often talk about it, on how to beat it, or how does it go between the two of you?
I don't think so. I don't think we have once, really discussed that. The conversation is, are you fit, ready to go to the match? I don't think, age has anything to do with it. And, success can come at any age. I don't think it, anyone has ever tells you at this age, if you can't get it, there's no more success going to happen. So that is where I, truly believe the perseverance of, constantly being out there, doing it week in, week out, trying and figuring out what was best for me to help the partnership. I mean, back in 2022, when I decided to play with Matthew Ebden, I told my coach, here's a great opportunity to play with a Grand Slam champion. I said, and 2022, I was not really traveling with a physio, and I said, I need to hire a physio. So luckily, I found a great physio from Belgium. Her name is Rebecca, and when she came on the circuit for the first time, I said, see, I wanted something very specific. I have no cartilages on my knees. It's fully worn out. And what I want to do is really focus on strengthening. Even the days I practice, if I'm not feeling great, that's totally fine. But the days I play matches is where I want to feel 100%. So she understood that. And then she said, okay, we need to start a lot of mobility, a lot of
Hello and welcome and a very good morning to all our viewers out there. You're watching the Morning News Show on CNN News 18 and I'm Sri Akundu here with all the latest updates of the hour and the top stories of the day, which we'll take you through in the next 60 minutes from across the nation and around the world. And well, we are beginning this segment with some breaking news that is coming in. Let's move right into it. Now, the BJP posts video of Rahul Gandhi and blames Rahul Gandhi for serving biscuits from pet dog's plate to Congress workers in Bharat Jodo Nyaya Yatra. Amit Malviya posts this video and he says, and I quote, "Just a few days ago, Congress President Kharge ji compared the party's booth agents to dogs, and here Rahul Gandhi is feeding biscuits to a dog during his visit, and when the dog did not eat, he gave the same biscuits to his worker. If a party whose president and crown prince treats its party workers like dogs, then it's natural for such a party to